All right, that makes me feel more important for some reason, or more scared. I'm just having my embodied experience here. So I'm going to start with a poem from Wendell Berry, from his poetry book, The Selected Poems of Wendell Berry. I consider him an embodied writer. And the poem is Grace. The woods is shining this morning, red, gold, and green. The leaves lie in the ground or fall or hang full of light in the air still. Perfect in its rise and in its fall, it takes the place it has been coming to forever. It has not hastened here or lagged. See how surely it has sought itself, its roots passing lordly through the earth. See how without confusion it is all that it is, and how flawless its grace is. Running or walking, the way is the same. Be still, be still. He moves your bones, and the way is clear. Or she moves your bones, and the way is clear. Or they move your bones, and the way is clear. So everything is experienced through our body, right? Everything is held and remembered in our body. Everything. So embodied writing brings you and the reader into into the experience, whatever experience this is that you're writing about, more deeply and more profoundly. It's sensory writing. Writing can bring a renewed sense of intimacy to all our felt experiences. And as I've shared before with my writers, the beautiful thing about writing, whether it's poetry, a blog, a poem, a letter, a manuscript, the writing itself, if you allow it, is transformational itself and is always first for the writer. So when you're writing something and you're learning more and more about the embodied experience of writing, it becomes more and more intimate because it becomes more and more of a felt experience. And that then translates, if you are going to share with readers, that translates to your readers. So whatever you experience and bring forth on the page through your writing ends up is a gift to the reader, as an experience for the reader. Embodied writing is about harvesting experience first. So harvesting the experience through listening and noticing, and then having the words arrive, and then listening and noticing what words arrive. Instead of going on a vigilante hunt for the words, most words, when we wait, as writers, they will arrive. They come to us. In fact, any kind of forcing, as I've shared before, in our writing tends to shut us down. Yes, writing is a discipline, and embodied writing is definitely a discipline, but it's a discipline that is more of an invitation than something that something you're forcing, like I have to do it this way. The body is our writing ally, or wants to be. It might not feel like it's our ally at times, many times, but it wants to be our ally. So because it wants to be our ally, ultimately it is our ally. So I just want to say a little bit about being trauma informed, not me necessarily, although I am, but it's about you being trauma informed in your writing. And what I'm going to say about that is we're always writing about pain stories, about crisis, about trauma, drama, suffering, and conflict. Let's admit there's not going to be much to write about unless there's some sort of tension there in the experience, something that kind of calls us in that way. So pain will come up as you write. So when we're writing about some traumatic event or a pain story or some conflict, maybe something we're just even working out internally, it will come up as we write. So that's also what makes the writing experience transformational, and why I so often remind you just to let your writing take you where it takes you. Or tonight, how I'm going to invite you to use your body as that invitation to the words, rather than going out on a vigilante hunt or trying to force words to come. So keep writing in most cases. When you're writing, particularly when you're writing about pain stories or trauma, I invite you to keep writing. There's some exceptions to that. Mostly it's timing. It's not that you never would write about the trauma, but maybe you need to take a break, or the re-traumatization, you're being re-traumatized too much. Ideally, when you're writing about something that's really painful or traumatic in the past, the present, you're either in therapy, you have a writing Sherpa like me, you're in a writing group, or you have a writing partner. Um, you have some kind of support, so you can be supported through your writing experience. Pretty much that's the case. I would recommend that no matter what. Of course, then also, if you're going to keep writing and it's difficult, or say there's some pain involved, um, do self-care. Just make sure that there's some form of self-care involved, even in the writing process, whatever that might mean, whether that's where you write, how you write, who you write with, who you share your writing with. Also taking rests and breaks in your writing, walking, being out in nature, all that good stuff, whatever self-care means to you, but also having your writing itself, your writing practice, have elements of self-care in it. We may find that we have places we have not embodied in the first place. So one reason it's so important to also talk about or introduce you to the idea of embodied writing, or ourselves to the idea of embodied writing, is because if we've had any pain in our life, particularly if it's been traumatic, we have left our bodies. I spent a great majority of my childhood out of body. And I didn't even know this until I went to therapy. And my therapist basically said, I've been living above the head on up. So that became part of my journey of living an embodied life, but also in being an embodied writer, and the value of that. But what you may find is that you have places where you've not been embodied in the first place. It might not be all places. Maybe you're like me, or have been like me, where you're walking, head. You're not in your whole body. I am now. I would say I'm an embodied being. So discovering a felt sense experience to write about when you're disembodied can be challenging, but it's also that invitation to become embodied. So they work together. So it might be like, well, how do I do this? What does this mean? There's this disconnect. So actually writing in an embodied way, and we're going to have several practices tonight, allows for that, but then brings you and then helps you become embodied. Journaling itself, handwriting journaling, is embodied writing, is a physical form of embodied writing, and is so important to do. I always write my first drafts, part of my first drafts, not the whole first draft, by hand. Like even tonight's class, I sat down and I had my notes. Because all my great ideas come through this way, my embodied way in my journal, and then I translate it onto the computer or wherever I want to, if it's my manuscript. So discovering a felt experience to write about is challenging, and can be, and likely will be, very emotional and deeply emotional. And again, you might not have words for it at first. That's a good thing. That's okay. So that's actually how I'm going to encourage you to approach some of this new language, this embodied language, or this old language newly, is not to focus so much on the words. So even for those who have blackouts, for example, can write about them because the body was there. Again, it's a reminder that even though you left your body, or I left my body stayed. I went somewhere else. My psyche, you could say, went somewhere else, but I stayed. So there are even ways to write about times that we blacked out, if we want to. And most of that through the power of the imagination. There are places we leave our body. So writing brings us back into our body, which again is emotional and an energetic experience as we write. So if you're having a really powerful, energetic, physical, emotional experience while you're writing, and let's say it's not favorable, it's painful, I would say keep writing. Um, what's the worst that can happen? It's bringing up the old thing, but the worst, as my therapist used to say, the worst has already happened. So what you're doing by writing it and writing through it is helping it move out of your body. Embodied writing includes being in the natural world and listening through the body when we are in the natural world for the wild surroundings and the natural surroundings while taking notes. So I want you to hear that part. Always taking notes. You're going to hear me saying that throughout this. So there's this, because this is about writing, embodied writing, right? So it's about becoming this really remarkable note keeper. All my all my writing is a result of note keeping, journal keeping, mostly little notes first, then into my bigger journal, and then into the context of the book or whatever wherever it's going to land. Again, everything is experienced through the body, and everything is held and remembered in our body, everything. So embodied writing brings us into the experience, fictional or actual, fictional or non-fictional. And when we let our whole selves come into our writing and experiences, again, the reader will too. Writing is always transformational for the writer when we stay with our stories and our ideas on the page, meaning obviously the experience might be transformational on its own, but I'm talking about the writing experience itself being transformational. To deepen the writing experience and reading experience, we want to become more and more embodied writers. So for fiction writers, you're going to, if you're fiction writers and you're going, oh, this doesn't apply to me, you embody the character because you are the character. When you're writing, when I'm writing on my fiction, my main character, it's first person, present tense. So I'm just following this character around in her life. I do the same practices with her, but I basically become her. So you would become your character in the same ways that we're practicing tonight or similar. So I'm going to start with a meditation. I hope I've given you enough of a summary of embodied writing. I actually didn't know it was a big thing out there. I was calling it somatic writing at first. And I thought people don't necessarily know what that means as much. And, Kara recommend, change it. So I changed it to embodied writing. And it's a whole genre or definition out there. So you can look it up more out there on the internet if you want, which might not be that embodied of you, but, go ahead and do some research if you want. So what I'd like to do is start with a little meditation. If you're comfortable, close your eyes, but you don't need to. Also have your notes book, your journal next to you with a pen. So you're in a comfortable position where you can close your eyes or have a soft focus in front of you. Again, whichever is comfortable for you. And, but have your pen and paper ready. So we're going to begin with what's called a body scan meditation by noticing the sensations in the body. So go ahead and take a couple deep breaths. Close your eyes or have a soft focus. And then just begin by noticing the breath. Just take a couple moments here to notice the physical sensation of your breath, just to help you kind of come into the body a little bit more, noticing the breath, just letting the breath breathe by itself, just noticing the breath. Notice you might want to be saying, oh, this is good, this is bad, I got this right, I got this wrong, I should have a longer breath or shorter breath. Just notice that and release it. Because what we're going to practice through the body scan is you're going to take your awareness now from the breath and just move it around the body. And notice the different sensations, whether they be emotional, physical, energetic, vibrational, the different sensations in and on the body. So you're moving your awareness around your body, noticing the different sensations without labeling them good or bad, or without labeling them like anxiety or pleasure. Just noticing. So you're kind of not putting words on them yet. Just noticing the different sensations. And try to cover all of your body from head to toe, toe to head, side to side, and places that you might not noticeably take your attention, like under your arms, maybe behind your knees. And continuing just to breathe by itself, noticing the different sensations without judgment or labeling, or the emotional content without naming it. So maybe you have anxiety normally, right? And you kind of notice that that's what it is, and you jump to that label. See if you can just be with that energy or vibration, that physical sensation of that particular emotional state, whatever it is, without labeling it or judging it. Going deeper into the sense experience of it. And just do that for a few more moments here, practicing that, moving your awareness around the body, noticing the different sensations without judgment or labeling as best you can. Now move your awareness to your belly. And how would you describe any particular body sensations without labeling it or judging it? Noticing it again, like skin against closed, soft, full, empty, rising, falling, relaxed, tight. So that's not really labeling it like anxiety or good or bad, or um, even labeling it breath, but more its content. So can you just notice the different sensations and maybe start having words for those? Skin against the clothes, the softness of breath, a full breath, the emptying of the breath, the rising and falling of the breath, relaxed breath, tight breath. First, just notice, practicing this feeling experience of just noticing. And then try to maintain that same awareness of the physical sensation, particularly in the belly, the rising and falling of the breath there, or whatever's going on in you, maybe grumbling, but you're not going to label it hunger. You're going to, it's grumbling. And then take your pen or whatever you have to write and use sensory words like sticky, warm, cold, edgy, tender. I'm just throwing some out. Tender, soft, shining, shimmering, bubbly, foggy, tingly, tickling, gritty, fluffy, light, shadowy, rough, smooth, hairy, flat, chilled. And those are just some I threw out there. Just, and you can kind of like what I do, like have your eyes maybe still softly focused or closed and just start writing the sensory experiences down. Just the sensory experiences again. Is it shimmering? You could even write, I notice softness. My stomach rises and falls against my shirt, expands, contracts, small breaths out, big ones in. The breath round and rich. I notice softness, gentleness, a warm, movable belly. Try not to force anything. And just take a minute here to write that. Staying in contact with the belly as it rises and falls, or the breath rises and falls in the belly, and anything you notice. Now I'm going to remind you of an important, I mentioned it already, and I mentioned it again. If your writing starts to go somewhere else, you always let it go there. Always, always, always. A memory could have popped up, an idea might have popped up, an experience might have popped up. Obviously, we're not going to have a lot of time to get into that writing right now, but write a little note to yourself. This reminded me of, or, write a little note to yourself so you can come back to it and continue writing about it if you want. Always let your writing take you where it takes you. Don't stop the writing process. And then take a minute, though, to finish up that line or that thought, that word. So, and then we're going to play with metaphors, a metaphor with that particular experience with your belly. So take one line out of it, like, so I noticed my belly rose and sank, rose and sank. That's actually the words I use. It rises and sinks, rises and sinks. So pick something, one of your descriptors, and then just write, say, my belly rose and sank like a, and then take a moment to pause and consider all the different things in life or nature that rise and fall, or whatever descriptor you have. My belly grumbled like my belly pressed against my shirt like so think of different things that press against something. Think different things that rise and fall. Think of different things that grumble. I think of my grandfather. What in nature grumbles? There's animals that grumble. The ground grumbles. So, see what I'm getting at? So just kind of open your imagination and see if you can come up with a metaphor. But pick it harvesting from your sense experience, something that you either imagine happens in nature or you have encountered in nature. When I walk, sometimes the ground grumbles when I walk. So just things like that. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I will say, try not to start with a cliche or to go with the cliche, but you can start with a cliche. Sometimes, a cliche pops into our brain. They're actually referred to as dead metaphors. And the reason they're dead metaphors is because they've been said so much and thought so much, they don't have any energy to them. They have no real life to them. So, kind of, you can start there, but then kind of let it go and then start expanding your awareness, your curiosity to, well, where else does this sense experience come up? And how else does it come up in my life, in relationships, in nature? When I'm doing the rise and fall or the rose and sank, a pontoon boat came to my mind. I never think of pontoon boats, but I used to love pontoon boats when I was a kid. There's something so fun about pontoon boats, and being on a friendly lake. So my line was, my stomach rose and sank like a pontoon boat on a friendly lake, you know. And then I got off on pontoon boats, which is fine. We'll take another minute to finish, a few moments actually, to finish that up. And as people are finishing up, are there any questions about this so far? There's another piece to this here with this particular piece. Okay. So then what I'd like you to do is add one more line to that image. I already did that. So my metaphor was, like a pontoon boat. So my stomach rouse and fall like a pontoon boat. I did take a couple notes about writing about pontoon boats for later. But then I want you to give it a context. So one more line of that image. And I just put, and it can have to do with anything. So for me, what popped into my mind was a pontoon boat on a friendly lake. So it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else at this point. And then if you want, you can add a larger context, like, so around me, leaves are just starting to turn and turn the water the color of a fire about to start. So you can set one more larger context to it, but have it be physical and setting it. So for me, I'm on a pontoon boat on a friendly lake, and then it became fall. So around me, and yours might not be as friendly of an experience, but just try to follow that sensory experience, that metaphor, then add one more or two more lines of reference, like a friendly lake or whatever it might be, a context. And then what's going on, a larger context, if there's one. So for me, around me, leaves are just starting to turn and turn the water the color of a fire about to start. All sensory. So you're placing that metaphor, that experience in a larger context. So go ahead and finish that up. Anybody, one brave soul, want to share their, it might be 1 to 4 lines. That includes your metaphor. And Eileen.
Willing to share.
Great. Oh, Eileen?
Yes.
Great, go ahead.
My stomach feels like a rising loaf of raw bread. Soft but taut, easily popped or destroyed. I have a visual image of a soft loaf of bread rising in the kitchen with lots of baking smells, yeasty, floury, well-used looking loaf.
Excellent, thank you. So you got the whole thing, the larger context as well. All right. You can just do a little wave. Did it open up any other things, like any other places or stories, or bring you deeper into any particular experience? But this was just practicing in the moment, with the rise and fall of the belly. So even if you just got it to that, final stage of having a context for the felt experience, that's what the intention of this practice was. So this.
Yeah.
So this.
Oh.
Go ahead. Oh, Catherine.
Yeah. It got me into body image.
Good. Oh, okay, great. So just notice, everybody, where it took you. There's no wrong or right way. And you can use this again, and you'll get all these notes in your email when she sends it out to you, to do the body scan, to practice. It's a great meditation to practice anyway, but to become more embodied yourself, and then use it to, when you're writing about something, bringing yourself into that experience in that way. Noticing how you're feeling. If the fictional character, you would be doing a body scan in the sense of her or his experience, or an animal. There's a great book out called Being an Animal, Being a Beast. That's what it's called, Being a Beast. Okay, now we're going to practice something else. Any question about that practice? There was more of an invitation to starting to get this sense of the importance of paying attention, giving attention to the body, the physical experience, and going out from there in terms of with your writing. Time for one question if somebody has one. I don't see there is. Okay. So the next one is, I'd like you to choose what I refer to as a pivotal moment. So pivotal moment or scene in your life, a pivotal time, an experience in your life. If you can, if nothing jumps in, just pick getting up this morning. But it's ideal to pick a pivotal moment. And of course, if you're writers, you have several of them. We all have many pivotal moments, but it's the pivotal moments you really write from. So take a moment to choose one. I'll give you a minute or a little bit of time here to choose a pivotal moment, and then write that pivotal moment at the top of a blank page. So as I've shared in this particular class before and a few of my other ones, one example was when I got baptized at age 13. I chose to get baptized at age 13. So that would just, I'd write getting baptized at the top of the page. That's my pivotal moment. So you're going to practice embodied writing with a pivotal moment. And then write one line underneath it. The reason this is a pivotal moment. It could be as basic as I learned something about myself. It could be more detailed. It could be general or detailed, but just to get a little define a little bit why that's a pivotal moment. What made that a meaningful moment to you? Experience, seen. And again, it only has to make sense to you. Remember that in all your writing, all your first drafts, and sometimes your third or fourth drafts, the reader will benefit, of course, if you're going to have a reader, but it's all for you. So, you know, you don't have to, when you write down the meaning of it, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody as long as it makes sense to you. So when you read it, you'll remember, yeah, I know what I'm telling myself here. All right, so I just want to make a note. Because there's so much suffering and complexity in the world, we can't open up to it all. And even in your own story, in your own, especially if it's a trauma story, but you know, if it's a life story, there's pain and suffering in it, but there's definitely complexity to it. So we can't write about it all at the same time, but it's going to kind of want to pour in on you. That's why we focus in on one pivotal moment or one scene, one idea, and we write out from that idea and kind of try to let everything else go. And that actually helps you take that particular writing to where it wants to go, that particular pivotal moment or that particular poem or scene to where it wants to go, instead of trying to cram in everything else that you have to say about, you know, your subject or your theme. Okay, so and that's also how to live an embodied life, is like I can't be walking around all day. You know, you don't watch too much news, watch just enough news, right? And then decide that one little thing you might do to, you know, alleviate, you know, some suffering in your world or somebody else's. But, you know, don't watch too much news. Don't think about all the things you need to do or write about or save or fix. You know, focus on that one thing and let it be a creative process. You know, let it be what we focus on in terms of our transformation, our healing, and our writing, be a creative process. All right. You know, a joyful, you know, I'm not saying it feels joyful all the time, but allowing it to be that creative, joyful process, that meaningful. So give yourself permission to just open up to this pivotal moment, to this subject or theme, to this story for now. So go ahead and take a nice deep breath again and close your eyes if you want to. If you don't want to close your eyes, just have a soft focus in front of you, which just kind of helps you not, again, be distracted by too much other stuff. And first, just notice the body, the physical, emotional experience presently, and then bring on into your consciousness that pivotal moment. So kind of enter that pivotal moment. Go into that place and time, that moment. So for me, it would be sitting in the room waiting for the Lutheran minister to bring the holy water. Now, as you do this, you can also take notes, but I want you to kind of maintain the sense of awareness of that physical, emotional, you know, you can do the body scan, but you're doing a scan and noticing that this past experience. So you're taking yourself there. You're in the room, or you're in the yard, or you're in the class, you know, whatever, wherever you were. And but you're taking notes of what you're feeling, anticipation, edgy, wanting, yearning, waiting, expecting. So first try not to write about or even consider the meaning. Definitely let go of everything else, labeling, trying to force anything, and just notice and write down what you're noticing about that experience, that physical experience. And take a little time to do that. I almost get a sense of what I was wearing that day when I hang out there long enough, but I don't quite. I get the physical sensation of what I was wearing. Breathe, take notes. Now and again, close it. When I'm writing, I'm always closing my eyes. I'm always going back like this, closing my eyes, going back into the scene, whether it's fictional or personal pivotal moment, and then I start writing again. Then expand your awareness out around you a little bit in that setting. What is the setting? And any sensory details you can jot down. All I remember is, the room was small, private, secretive, but like a good omen secretive. So that's what I would add later when I notice this. Well, I actually did in the moment, but when I'm noticing secretive, there's something feels secretive. And so I wasn't judging it. I was just, oh, what's the metaphor that might go with this? Oh, it's like an omen. It's like a good omen, secretive like a good omen. Smelled of church, which was wood and songbooks. And then as you continue writing, write anything that comes to mind as you're writing about this pivotal scene. Starting again from this physical sensory experience of your body, the physical experience, the emotional experience, the energetic experience, then the sensory of the environment. And then let that writing take you where you want. Write anything you're wondering, anything you're remembering. Take more notes. And again, always let your writing take you where it wants to take you. I'm going to give you a few minutes to write now. And breathe. The imagination and breath are connected, physically connected. And sometimes we tend to hold our breath when we're trying to force something. So breathe, remember, take notes. Let your writing take you where it wants to. And go ahead and finish up that line or that thought. So these are just little hors d'oeuvres of this practice. So we want to get better at this, and the ways to do that is through doing more body scan meditations, and all of these you can find online. Through yoga practice is good, particularly healing yoga or gentle yoga. Breath work is great. Mindfulness practices, meditation, awareness practices, and emotional intelligence. And that would almost take another whole class. But this is leaning into emotional intelligence, right? Listening to our body is really listening to our emotions also. Our emotions are in our body, right? So they're an emotional felt experience. Our emotions are felt experiences. And so anything we can do to become more emotionally intelligent or aware or conscious is a wonderful thing. I always recommend the book Letting Go by David Hawkins. It's he was a physician, and he wrote lots of books. That's one of my favorites, is Letting Go, and I think it's a fundamental book about emotional consciousness and how that heals everything. That's his kind of view, and how it all comes back to that emotional consciousness and healing, our emotions and being with our emotions. So highly recommend that book to all my writers. David Hawkins, Letting Go. The Pathway to Surrender, I think it's called. And it's a great book, reference book too, for emotions, naming them in your writing. I want to say too that all my therapeutic work comes down to trusting our experiences. I mean, I don't have to do anything else with anybody. And that's the same with writers and is writing. And anytime I'm trying to move forward in my life or figure something out, I always go back to my experience. I always just go back into it. What am I experiencing? What am I feeling? What am I noticing about my emotions in my body? That tells me everything I need to know about what I want or don't want, and to trust that. And it doesn't matter if nobody else is in the room is having the same experience. If you're the only one, you trust yours and you write from that. So I have, are there any questions? Like I have room for maybe one question at this point, or did anybody throw one in the chat? I don't think so. Okay, so we're good. We're good. I got a couple more hors d'oeuvres for you. All right, so I'm going to give you an embodied writing prompt that will continue out off the page and on the page from so maybe commit to a week of this particular practice. Then you can do this with another word every week if you want. I love doing it. I'm going to pick a word. So what I want you to do is choose an embodied word to explore this week. So embodied work would be like an emotional word or a word that describes a physical emotional experience. Grief, I'm just going to throw some out. Connection, longing, yearning, joy, surrender, serenity, hunger, wanting, greed, kindness, compassion, grace. And remember, the poem I read was named Grace by Wendell Berry. So, but it can be any word you want. Pick a word, a felt word, a somatic word, and to do this exploration with. And if anybody doesn't have one, I'd be happy to give you one. Anybody not have one? Not coming up with one? Heather, you're not coming up with one? All right.
I'm not.
Okay.
I have a tendency to want to say shame, but that's not a good embodied word for me tonight.
But you don't want it. Okay, so
I need something that isn't shame.
Okay, so you want something more positive, or
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I was going to say disappointment. That's interesting. I'm gonna how about longing?
Okay,
longing.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I would like one too, Julie.
And who's that? Oh, Barb. Okay. Did you want it on any kind of flavor?
No, I'm having trouble deciding, so just give me one.
Well, I guess how about surrender? Oh, another good one is, but I'm not saying this to you, Barbara, but powerlessness. I love that one. It comes up in the 12 steps. So it's a good one. Anybody else want me to throw one at you? Synchronicity there with that. Amy, you want one? Amy. Well, what popped in my mind is bewilderment. Is that so? Try it on for size. Once you choose your word or it's chosen for you, try not to change it. Because part of the magic is staying with this one word. So the conversation, you experience the full conversation with this one word, embodied word. Okay, so everybody has one now. So notice throughout the day this week, and I'll send these in the chat right now, and then you can also you'll get them in the email, but then you'll have them right now. Notice throughout the day this week how this word comes in your day-to-day encounters. So you're holding a conversation with this word, all right? What pivotal moments hold this embodied word or are an expression of this word? So you might even do a little list of pivotal moments where this dynamic, this word comes up. This embodied word, this dynamic comes up. How does this word feel in the body? Now, it might feel differently one day, like hunger can feel many different ways, right, in the body. Or even serenity, so just notice how it feels in the body at different times even. Of course, it's very important you're taking notes, lots of notes. You might even have a little journal. You do, I hope, have pocket journals. I give these away when I'm in person because they're so important to have. Pocket journals. And you can write your word on it. This is not that thick, so I'll write the word on it and then just take it around, collect all these things around this word this week. How does this word feel in the body? Now, in various encounters, how does it come up? And in past pivotal moments. Choose just one word to explore and write about it. Take notes, take this word out in nature with you. How is this word expressed in nature? All right. Any questions about that? So part of this, so I got one more practice to do, but kind of summarizing and then open up to any questions you might have. You can have questions about tonight's subject, or you can have questions about my life if you want. No, about writing, anything about writing if you'd like. So what I invite you to do is practice a sense of appreciation, curiosity, listening and noticing before you form words. So that was a little bit of the bent, tonight. It's like here we are writers, but I'm trying to invite you to be present first for the experience and just noticing it without having to rush into putting it into words. And then the words there's an invitation then for words to come. And when we open that doorway, more comes. And that's why sometimes you'll find yourself, I had no idea I was going to be writing about pontoon boats. And then all of a sudden I'm writing about pontoon boats. Or I had no idea I was going to write about powerlessness. And oh my God, how does it come up in nature? So here I go, so allowing it to happen. So just having this curiosity and noticing first. So there's it's a paradoxical edge to this experience is I am, inviting you to take your pocket notebook. So like when I go out for my walk, I actually also use my phone, I confess, and I talk into the phone sometimes. but I also have my notebook. And so, I'm taking a moment to notice, and then I'm jotting things down. But then once I start writing, I kind of want to keep taking notes. But then, so it's coming back to being present, noticing, listening from the body. Always take a few breaths at least and practice the just noticing the sensations in your body and the sensory experience without words. Then take notes. Then write about what you are noticing and let that take you where it takes you. So you kind of see my theme here. Write what you are learning about your word. Then at the end of the week or by the end of the week, write a story or blog or poem or pivotal moment with this embodied word. I'm going to stick all this in the chat too. So practice a sense of appreciation, curiosity, and listening, noticing before you form words. Always take a few breaths at least and practice the just noticing the sensations in your body and the sensory experience without words. Then take notes. Then write what you are noticing and let that take you where it wants to. Write what you are learning about your word. Then at the end of the week, by the end of the week, write a story or blog or poem or pivotal moment with this embodied word. Title the poem the word you have chosen, and from your notes, write a poem. It's always fun to write a poem with your word up at the top. And you've got all this experience going on. I have this one writing experience. I haven't suggested it for a while, but what you do is you go outside and you just listen to all the sounds. For 10 minutes in your yard, you write down all the sounds you hear, and you try to expand your listening. I didn't know what a red eye was. A coffee drink, right? A friend of mine, I said, "Oh, I'll bring coffee today for our walk." And she said, "Bring me a red eye." And I go, "I don't know what a red eye is. What's a red eye?" So she told me, it's a regular coffee with shot of espresso. Makes sense. Well, when I went to the list, through the order board, there it was, red eye. And I'm going, that's been there every time I've gone through, but I've never seen it. I found that fascinating. My point being, we see what we're looking for. I want you to listen for whatever sound might be out there in the yard, then come back in and write a piece about what you don't remember. I don't remember this, I don't remember that. And just kind of streamline your consciousness. I don't remember, I don't remember, I don't remember. And then write a third piece with those, bringing those two together. All those sounds you heard sitting in the yard, and then those things you don't remember. Like, I don't remember my dad visiting me. I don't remember, that was where my mind went right away. I don't remember being hugged by my dad. I guess my dad's on my mind all of a sudden. I don't remember, so it's that streamline of consciousness writing that I've shared with you. Repeat the line, I don't remember, and just let something come. And then the third part of that practice is bringing the sounds together with the I don't remember, and you created a poem. The final practice, so I kind of just threw that one in tonight, and I'll write it out so she can send it in the email, is through your daily life, through your day-to-day life, to help you embody and notice and invite the words to come, invite the lines, the stories to come to you rather than you going on a vigilante hunt for them, which is always painful and not necessary. Practice this presence practice that I have, which is as you go throughout the day, you could do it every hour. You could do it just like maybe have a little dinger on your phone to remind you, or maybe you can just do it. You're disciplined enough to remind yourself of taking a moment and asking yourself these three questions. What am I noticing? And then you don't go on a vigilante hunt to go, okay, I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that, in your body, or, what are you noticing? Just ask the question and let whatever comes come. Nothing comes, nothing comes. That's fine. You're noticing nothing. Just say, what am I noticing? Be curious. What am I feeling? Then, so your awareness kind of moves back into your body. What am I feeling? And that's emotionally and physically. And again, don't go on a vigilante hunt. You can do a little body scan if you want, but don't go searching for feeling or emotion. Just what am I feeling, or what am I physically experiencing? What am I feeling? And then the third one is, what do I want? What do I want? And I'd like everybody to get, good at that question too. Again, asking the question, opening up to asking the question. You don't have to go on a vigilante hunt. What do I want? What is it I want? Just ask the question and all your responses will come. Sometimes they'll come right away in the moment, and all of a sudden, or you'll be walking through your day and you'll go, oh, I know what I want. Or I know what I wanted. I'm going to read the grace poem again, and then we're done. Send me questions via email, my dear friends, my writer friends, if you have any. No bad questions. Grace. The woods is shining this morning, red, gold, and green. The leaves.
Take out the junk.
Oh, God. The leaves, my Siri's reminding me to take out the junk. Stop.
Take out the junk.
Alexa, stop. It's junk day. Oh, that's funny. Grace, the woods is shining this morning, red, gold, and green. The leaves lie on the ground or fall or hang full of light in the air still. Perfect in its rise and in its fall, it takes the place it has been coming to forever. It has not hastened here or lagged. See how surely it has sought itself, its roots passing lordly through the earth. See how without confusion it is all that it is, and how flawless its grace is. Running or walking, the way is the same. Be still, be still. She moves your bones, and the way is clear. And with that, I'm done. Thank you for showing up, everyone.